Welcome to another edition of Coinomi Connect AMA. Join our host, Duane, and the Firo team as we dive into privacy and crypto. This conversation was recorded live on X Spaces on February 11th, 2026. Please note that the views and opinions expressed in this AMA do not necessarily represent those of Coinomi Wallet and should not be considered financial advice. Always do your own research on any project we discuss. Enjoy the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. Now, let's get started.
All right, cool. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm here. Thanks so much. And how should I call you?
You can call me Duane. That's
Dwayne.
how I
All
go
right.
by Spaces. So nice to meet you, Ruben. So I guess we can officially start. Let me just do a short introduction. Okay, hello and good day to everyone that is really tuning in here at Coinomi Connect. Today we are joined by one of the top and partners that we got so far, and they are not new partners. We've been partnered with them for pretty much a few years right now, so they're no stranger to Coinomi. But I believe this is going to be the first official spaces that we have here within Coinomi. So without further ado, we got Ruben from Firo. How are you doing today? And welcome to the to Coinomi Connect.
Doing great. Good evening. It's like 7 p.m. Malaysia, and just to let you know, like Coinomi, it's one of the first few wallets I use in my kind of crypto journey, and I always recommended Coinomi for a very long time. So I'm really glad you guys are still like alive and kicking, and still continuing the mission of building a good multi-coin wallet. And as you said, we've both been around and working together for a long time, and yeah, really excited to be here finally. Yeah.
Definitely, and we're I can confidently say that Coinomi is one of the veterans in terms of wallets in this space. And Firo, I guess you've been here for quite a while as well, since you've been partnered with with Coinomi for quite a while. And I'm glad that you're sharing your experience, your positive experiences with Coinomi. And of course, you guys at Firo have something really special as well that we definitely adhere to, and that is privacy in terms of your funds and cryptocurrency. But before we jump into that, Ruben, can you tell us more about yourself, your background, and maybe some about the main team members in Firo?
Sure. So I am the co-founder and what we call project steward of Firo. So basically, I steer the project, in look after it. Like it's kind of like a glorified janitor on behalf of the community. I've been around since like 2016. I guess yeah, from the very start of the project. We have another co-founder called Paramin Insom. He's Thai. He was a master student at Johns Hopkins University, and he also served as a part of the Thai cyber warfare unit. So that's pretty cool. And he was studying under Matthew Green, and that's how he got really interested in the zero coin paper. And yeah, we're actually the very first coin to actually implement zero knowledge proof privacy, or even zero knowledge proofs in general, on the blockchain in September 2016, which is like a whole month before Zcash. So yeah, that's a really cool milestone that not many people know about.
I have to say
Besides that,
though, oh sorry,
yeah,
what
sorry.
was the guy's
Uh,
name? That's gonna be to be an awesome title to be on your CV, like cyber warfare unit. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be perfect.
yeah.
Those are the dumb titles I have. So you got quite the firepower in your team. And
That's
okay,
right.
sorry for cutting you off. Yeah, carry on.
No worries. I mean, like his name is Paramin Insom. I mean, he's still, I wouldn't say like a super active member. He's still around, still keeps track and still supports our project. But like more of the day-to-day runnings is left to me, I guess. Of course, we have a team of very dedicated developers. Like Levon, Peter. We even had this guy called Aram Jinvanian, who came up with all our key privacy protocols. So he's like a real superstar. He's taken a bit of a step back, mainly because he's now serving in the Armenian government. But there's some indications that he might want to come back. So yeah, so that's like the key main key people. And of course, AJ and Anwar have been with me for many years. So, and they're like kind of like my right hand and left hand, I guess.
Yeah, so you got quite the military background in your team, and you know what? Military background means military grade protection, and that's actually what we really need. That level of protection and privacy, which is needed, especially in with our funds and everything. So, Ruben, can you tell us what problem does transparent blockchains create that users cannot fix with good wallet habits?
Right. So, I mean, like when I first came across Bitcoin, it was actually advertised to me like, hey, this is private, right? Because, there's no personal information that you need to put on chain, right? There's no like sign up like, oh, hey, my name is Ruben, so and so. No, you just create an address. You can create new addresses, right? But transparent blockchains, like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, create like permanently publicly accessible record of every single transaction. So even if you like practice good wallet hygiene, like using new addresses, avoiding, address reuse, the moment any sort of address gets linked to your identity, and that happens really easily, right? I pay someone, that person knows it's from me, right? Or if I deal with an exchange or I pay a merchant, that particular address gets linked to my identity. And chain analysis can then work backwards and map my entire financial history. Obviously, it's even easier for non U2XO chains like Ethereum. But the problem is really structural. You're relying on obscurity. And, in the age of AI, in the age of very good chain analysis, no amount of careful behavior can overcome the fact that the data is out there permanently and is out there for anyone, not just like law enforcement or governments or one, anyone with the tools and motivation to analyze it. Like we've seen Zach XPD, right? He's not like he's just a private individual who manages to track all this stuff. So yeah, even in traditional money, spending cash doesn't leave a global immutable trail. But with transparent blockchains, every transaction does. So that's kind of what we believe at Firo, that if you want the real like digital currency, you need to have privacy. And yeah, I think to me it's super obvious, but I hope that's obvious for everyone else here too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's 100% agree on that. It's an illusion that when you're using crypto to pay for transactions that you can't be tracked. You're going to be thinking that, okay, I use crypto to pay for
Mhm.
this. It can't track me. But, the thing is, as you mentioned with AI, before I've had my experiences with some of the friends in crypto, we will track a wallet where this original, transaction came from by backtracking a lot. If we have a lot of time, we're going to be able to do that. But as you mentioned, with AI, it's going to be so easy now to track the origin of any transactions, any funds. Let's say you're holding funds that are clean in your own way, but at some point in your life, you transacted with, let's say, a not so trusted individual that could be connected to some illegal activities. Then you're not safe. It doesn't matter because you can be tracked somehow as one of your transactions, and you can say that you're hidden behind different kinds of wallets. But once you liquidate your funds to P2P or something like that, you can still be tracked. And again, your privacy will be at risks. And I definitely 100% agree with that with how not so private cryptocurrency is in terms of trading.
Yeah, and actually, like some of my friends who help to do like USDT like fiat conversions, they have like several million. Remember, like stable coins are even worse because yes, although they may be on a uncensorable blockchain like Ethereum and whatnot, stable coins are by design able to be frozen. So
Yes,
the moment some sort of like bad money and maybe unintentional touches your account, your money gets frozen. It could be millions, right? And the thing
exactly.
is that in that sort of case, you are presumed to be guilty until proven innocent, when it should be the other way around. And
It takes so
I have
long to prove that you're
experienced,
not guilty. That's
yeah, I have experienced this before. My bank accounts in Malaysia, because I had a bad transaction of about 500 US dollars, I accidentally dealt with a person who was involved in a scam. I had my bank accounts frozen for an entire year, and that was like ridiculous, like over a
entire
500
fund, not
US
just the
dollar.
500, right? Like the entirety.
Yes.
Oh man.
Right. And I went to the police, I went to the banks, talking, like spending hours of my time, and I'm just like, man, like that's so like I have stuff to pay, right? Like, what am I gonna do? Like, all my bank accounts are frozen. So that was like a really like huge wake up call and kind of made me like, wow, yes,
Like the
cryptocurrencies have a real role. Yeah,
decentralization, because you really don't have full control over your funds. If the
exactly.
government can still, not just government, if an entity can take hold or freeze your funds at will, then it's not
Yeah.
that free. It's not that flexible. It's not just not decentralized as we've been talking about.
Realistically, it's the end of freedom because like how can you fight against the government when they can freeze you out of all your assets, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it pains me to say this, but if we have that kind of process wherein you can be tracked with your wallet, paying with actual money would be less trackable if you're just buying with money to money, because there's only a
Yep.
physical job. And that's something that we definitely need to fix, not just in cryptocurrency, but the entirety of fiat and currency. So,
Yeah. I mean, even cash is being outlawed. So yeah.
but that's something that you're trying to fix here with Firo. So can you tell us more on how can you fix that kind of problem?
Right. So basically, I mean, like one of the basic ideas of blockchain is because it's a decentralized ledger, right? There's no admin, right? There's no admin to say what goes in and what goes out. So obviously conflicts happen, right? And why there is transparency on the blockchain is because you need verifiability. That means everybody needs to be able to verify that a valid transaction has happened. And how Bitcoin does it and how most blockchains do it without any privacy is just say, all right, well, everyone's going to keep track of every single coin that's been created and how it moves so that everyone can look at the ledger and calculate it and like, yes, this person has X number of coins or something like that. So, obviously people say, oh, blockchain's about transparency. No, it's just a way to give verifiability. But now with the like improvement in technology and improvement of mathematics and cryptography, you can have verifiability without transparency, and this comes in the form of zero knowledge proofs to actually prove something has happened without giving the exact details of it, right? So that means like I can, for example, I can prove that I'm 21 years old without like giving you my date of birth, right? In this sign of cryptocurrency kind of transactions, zero knowledge proofs allows you to hide your sender, your receiver, your amounts, even the asset type if you want. But you can prove to the entire world that this is a valid transaction. I'm not creating coins out of thin air. I am sending, X number of coins, but you don't know. I'm just not creating coins out of thin air. And this means that I can prove and everyone can still verify the state of the blockchain, but you don't need the exact details. And that's what Firo does using zero knowledge proofs. And with not just like, our privacy protocol is like homegrown, not homegrown, but we created it ourselves in the sense that, it's not a fork of Zcash, it's not a fork of Monero, anything like that. This is developed from the ground up and it solves a lot of the issues that have plagued other privacy protocols. But yeah, I probably won't get too deep into that, but just to kind of I'll give the idea that yeah, through the power of zero knowledge proofs, you're protecting sender receiver amount, possibly asset type. And you can do this using zero knowledge proofs and the systems that we built. But also importantly, the other thing that tends to be kind of overlooked is what we call metadata, certain metadata. And probably one of the biggest metadata leaks is your IP address, right? So, yes, you can protect your sender, receiver, amount and all of that. But if I can tie a particular transaction to an IP address, it is personal information. The IP address tends to correspond to your personal devices or to your even to your home, right? So that's also a huge privacy risk. But Firo again is one of the very first. Yeah, it is the very first cryptocurrency to implement the Dandelion plus plus on the mainnet. So every single transaction gets bounced off a few nodes before it's broadcast to the rest of the network, making it much more difficult to kind of pinpoint where the original transaction originated from. So again, we have both metadata privacy and on-chain privacy as well. So yeah, it's quite a holistic approach.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a good way to make sure that you're proving something that you're legal without specifically telling personal details about yourself to prove that you're legal. So that's actually a smart idea to make sure that, you're you're abiding by the law in terms of yeah, what you just mentioned. And something I wanted to talk about is you guys at Firo believe that privacy must be the default instead of optional. And I know there are pros and cons to becoming private in terms of handling your funds, but can you tell us why you think that it must be the default on having a private wallet?
Right. So, I mean, before we go into that, I mean, let me sort of clarify what does privacy by default mean,
Hmm.
because there are like varying degrees. Obviously, there's the transparent, like you start transparent and then you opt into private, right? And that's a lot of what people do. Or you can present it as private and then opt out to go into transparent. But obviously, you have also those that are mandatorily private. That means you can't even opt out if you want to, and that's the model that like Monero and like Pirate Chain does. Well, for us, all our official wallets and all of that, it presents you all the private addresses by default. The transactions are also presented like, yeah, we use our privacy features, and any sort of new feature that gets built also requires you to interact only with the shielded pool. So in the sense, we are private by default. But the reality is, even as our integration with Coinomi shows, is that yeah, especially because, okay, let me talk about that later. But they are, especially with exchanges, with a lot of wallets, they still use our transparent addresses currently. There are ways to kind of get around that, but then because we are a little like a smaller project, it is hard to get a lot of these wallet providers to use our privacy systems. And at the same time, it's a lot of lift if you ask us to maintain every single third party wallet it is. So we make focus more on our first party wallets. But I think why we should be choosing privacy as a default is that, first of all, it's just better UX, right? If I have to receive something, if I have to shield every single step action that I make, if I do it wrongly, gives me a potential to leak my privacy data, right? I mean, like just even having two different types of address systems can be already confusing, especially for newcomers to crypto who are already like, oh yeah, coming to groups of it, and you're like, oh, by the way, there's a shielded balance, there's a transparent balance, and that's just like not really great UX. And again, every time when you shield and unshield, when you're dealing with a certain exchange, you are revealing the amounts that you do and sometimes the timing as well. So, for example, just to give a quick example, if I shield 176.4576 coins, and then after that I unshield 176.456 coins, although mathematically those 176 coins could have come from anything else, the correlation between the shielding and the unshielding can actually de-anonymize that, right? Because I just like directly correspond. So I do believe that, of course, privacy should be the default. There is a benefit to having maintaining transparent addresses, especially with if you want to survive on centralized exchanges. If you're a smaller project, you want integrations. We've even seen like Zcash with their near intents. It's all using the transparent addresses because it's so much easier to build bridges, cross chains, sort of stuff, interaction with other chains when you have a transparent layer. But if we are about privacy, we want, first of all, to normalize privacy and make privacy the baseline expectation rather than something you have to like opt in and makes you stand out. So yeah, I think it's a nuanced kind of discussion. One that probably can take out the whole of this
You can tell.
space. So I'll leave it as that at the moment.
But in general, everyone should be private. I think that's the better way to put it for the safety of everyone. And yeah, I think that's a simple way to do it for everyone. It's getting confused with, pretty much a
That's right.
long readed conversation. And
Mhm.
going to, I guess a little bit more on the topic. So, what do you think will be the worst thing? Oh, the bad things that can happen when only some users chose privacy.
That's first of all, I mean, the less people that use privacy, the smaller the crowd that you have to kind of hide in, right? Because if ever, basically the effective anonymity set is like basically the crowd that you're hiding in. The more people use your protocol, the more people use transactions, the bigger that anonymity set is, right? And obviously, the set that you interacts with the private layer may be different than the ones that interact with the transparent layer. So the more people that use the privacy feature, the bigger the crowd that you're hiding in. But certain protocols are much more vulnerable to these type of attacks. So like zero knowledge proof systems, they can still function very well, even if not everyone is using it. Like even if it's just like say 20-30% of the supply, it still gets a really, really high set of anonymity, but there's still leakages when you go in and out. While with a model that's like Monero, like ring signatures, because of the smaller set, you really need everyone to use it to get effective privacy. But I think from a philosophical standpoint, you if you make it if you have people have to choose privacy, it becomes very easily to censor and stigmatize the privacy users. So that, oh, why are you using the private feature? Maybe when you interact with my exchange and whatnot, you shouldn't be using the privacy feature. Oh, I'm flagging this transaction because it came from the private pool. And we kind of see this already in Ethereum with like Tornado Cash and Railgun and whatnot, that when you interact with one of these smart contracts, your address or any address that touches it just gets flagged with some kind of risk score, right? But if your entire chain was like private by default, it's everything the same, whether good or bad or whatnot, you are all the same and treated the same, and it becomes impossible to distinguish, like, well, did you opt into privacy to do something bad, or you're just a regular user, right? You don't have to do anything active to make yourself private. And I think that's a really important point. Yeah.
Absolutely. And going more into some of the technologies that you're using is, you have Lelantus as one of the things that you use, and you also have Lelantus Spark. So can you tell me
Right.
the difference, or did you see any privacy gaps within the first one or the other?
So Lelantus was actually it's a separate protocol than Lelantus Spark. So Lelantus already has been deprecated. No one can use it currently. But then because the work that we did on Lelantus actually influenced the development of Lelantus Spark, that's why we call it Lelantus Spark, even though they have similar building blocks, but it's a different cryptographic construction entirely. But the problem with Lelantus was that although it allowed you to shield, arbitrary amounts, that means I can shield 176 coins and then unshield 2 coins from that same thing. So previous systems like zero coin required you to shield the same amount and unshield the same amount. That means like if I shield 10, I have to unshield 10. So that means I need to keep everyone in like fixed denominations, which is also a thing in Tornado Cash. That means you cannot shield 0.56 Ethereum. You have to shield 1 Ethereum or half a Ethereum. Anything in between, you have to find like smaller denominations to break it down into. Lelantus kind of did away with that. That means you don't have to have fixed denominations. But the problem was the transaction amounts were still visible on the receiving side, and there was no receiver privacy. That means you still needed to keep on creating new addresses to prevent address reuse. But Spark kind of does away with all of this. You hide the amounts entirely. You don't have to unshield. You can just, you know, totally deal with the shielded layer. And yeah, you also have something like Spark addresses, which function like email addresses. That means you can share them publicly, and you can put them on the website, and anyone can send to it. But you're not giving out any information about how much it holds, when it receives funds, when it's going out. Right? Similar to email address, I share an email address. Yeah, no one can see when I receive or when I send mail or what's inside my mailbox. And that's really powerful because unlike in Ethereum, you share an Ethereum address, everyone looks it up and like, oh yeah, look at how much this person holds, when he's interacting or what he's interacting with, and your entire transaction history. So Spark is a really huge improvement in that regard, that yeah, makes sense, and why we kind of deprecated the Lantus after that. Yeah.
I think that's really amazing. So you're saying that this works similar to an email address where you can send emails to this address, but you can't check its emails. On contrary to that, it's like having a wallet where you can send to this wallet address, but you can't check the transactions from this wallet address. That's how Spark works.
Yes, that's right. I mean, that's how Spark addresses work. And we even have something called Spark names, which means that, rather than having this gook long address, you can say, like, yeah, I want to register at Coinomi, right? And I can share at Coinomi publicly and place it everywhere. And people can just type in the wallet at Coinomi and send the funds there. And this is totally done without any sort of, like, third party dependencies, or it's directly on chain. So all this information is safe on chain. And the best thing is that although you have a very easy to remember handle, like an email, and it's registered on the blockchain, you are not giving up any privacy, because again, when you're sending to it, no one sees when you receive funds or how much is in it, or when you are interacting with that address. So yeah, I think it's the perfect balance of shareability, interact user experience, and of course protecting the privacy at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. But there's no drawbacks to that having that kind of setup because it's really amazing that I'm hearing this kind of technology for the very first time. It would have saved me a lot. It would definitely
Yeah.
surprising me if I was utilizing that way before. So how
Yeah, it's a private version of ENS. I guess that's the way
Mhm.
to see it,
Oh,
right? Yeah.
so like an address will still look like a normal wallet address. I mean, a Spark address will still look like a bunch of text and letters and numbers, or is it going to be like a
Yes.
specific username?
Oh no, I mean the Spark. So if you register a Spark name, it resolves like a DNS
Hmm.
to a Spark address, right? So, but then yes, you can resolve to the Spark address, but that Spark address is not giving out any information, right? It's a stealth address. It's an address that you can't look up on a block explorer. You just can send to it, and that's it, right? So I guess the only time you can kind of mess up with your privacy is, let's say, if I am trying to be person A and person B and pretending to be, like, 10 different people, and if for some reason I share that same Spark address across these different identities, I tie them together. But on its own, with that address alone, you can't get any sort of information. So
Yeah, that's out
so
of
yeah, that's
our hands.
what you
It's
can. You
the
can't.
end user's
Yeah,
problem if he end up doing that.
that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's like sharing your email address, like, oh, I'm Susan and Anne and John, but then I give john.doe@gmail.com for all of them, right? So that's a stupidity problem that you can't solve.
Fortunately, I think if
Yeah.
you think like that, you shouldn't be going too deep with your privacy. You need a lot of levels of personal protection. But yeah, I guess for a lot of users, this kind of Spark technology will be helpful. And I know this is a really amazing feature, but I'm sure it doesn't come with no challenges at all. So, what would be the challenges that comes with making every transaction private by default, especially when using your technology?
Uh, well, first of all, I mean, obviously there are certain drawbacks. Obviously, private transactions take more space on the blockchain, right? So they are like several kilobytes large, which is like, I guess, quite a bit larger than a regular transparent transaction. Obviously, when you're making a transaction, when you're doing the transaction, it takes a little bit longer. Of course, we've come a long way from when ZK technology was first introduced. To make a single transaction, it would take your computer 30 seconds to generate a transaction. Now it's a couple of seconds, right? But you compare it to something like Ethereum or whatnot, it's just like bam, bam, bam. So yeah, maybe several seconds more to generate a transaction. It takes up a little bit more space, but more importantly, the cryptography to build this type of systems is really, really tough. Like, you're dealing with advanced math. You're dealing with cryptography. You need cryptographers. It's a lot of lift. But we obviously, as a decentralized project, we actually, when we design our protocols, we try to make it as simple as possible for people to understand. Obviously, it's not like for the regular layman on the road, But a person with some grasp of cryptography doesn't need like a PhD or to be an expert in ZK. Would be able to understand our protocol and how it works and the different building blocks because we've made it pretty simple, pretty modular. So in that case, even if the core team stops working or whatever, someone else can take along. But obviously, there will be trade-offs, right? Because as you said, so it takes up more space, it takes up more time to build. It's also really mathematically complex to do. And I think also from a regulatory and adoption standpoint, a lot of exchanges are very reluctant to adopt these privacy features. Once they hear privacy, they're like, it's not our risk appetite. It makes more sense to list a meme coin, which is a ERC20 or Solana token. It's so easy for us rather than, oh yeah, build all this custom tooling to support a privacy coin
Want
and
to make
be
more money.
subject to all
You're
this.
trying to say.
Yeah, so much easier, right? So yeah, these are all things that yeah, privacy invites more scrutiny from regulators, and you have to think about how you want to engage constructively. Yeah.
Okay, and a question that comes to mind is, I've heard and I've talked to and I've used a lot of other privacy-based projects, but in
Yeah.
most of those projects, yes, they're private, they're safe, but there's always one person who holds the key. So if worst case chance that this one person was found out and everything was leaked, that means the information of every user is going to be exposed. So what does Firo has in terms of that? How safe really is Firo? Let's say worst comes to worst, your system got hacked or the person holding the keys got hacked. What's the setup for that?
Well, the thing is that there's no master key. The core team doesn't have any master key. That's the point of the cryptography, right? We're not holding coins or mixing coins on behalf of our users or anything like that. Every user is doing it using the mathematics, not the core team that is doing it, right? So even if the core team, is held at gunpoint, there's no back
Mhm.
door that we can actually expose. And obviously, I mean, a lot of people build really like crazy privacy schemes, but first of all, look, our code is totally open source, MIT license, like, right? First of all, and it's been audited by some of the best. And at the same time, our paper, our we have a really really well written academic paper that describes how the Lantern Spark actually works. And each of these the paper doesn't just not just a description, it actually comes with what we call a security proof. That means a mathematical proof that this system holds up, right? So in the sense that, all right, sure, maybe you're not good enough to read this, not technical enough to read these papers, but these papers are out. They are featured in cryptography conferences. They're subject to public review. That's as best as you can get, right? Like anyone who's in the know can look at our system, how it's working, and can also take a look at our code to verify that it's doing what the paper actually says it does. And that's the thing with Bitcoin, right? Like if you can read the code, you can and you understand the Bitcoin rules, you can see that the code complies with what Bitcoin is trying to do, right? So in that sense, yes, it's the exact same thing. There's no need to trust, but you have to have the capability to verify, right? Which is just a knowledge gap, right? Yeah.
It's gonna be hard to beat that, to have like that kind of paper that is, as you mentioned, reviewed by professionals compared to the usual projects that we have audited at X company that's really good. I can
Yes.
trust us, but you guys have real life, real world applications that are actually reviewed. So I think, yeah, that's as trustworthy as you can be in this space.
Yeah, I mean, we've presented the paper at like cryptography conferences that were also attended by Zcash and engineers, Monero guys, and whatnot. It's been really
Best of
looked
the
at.
best in this
So
space, yeah.
yeah, and like even Monero guys were like, "Yo, that's a really cool construction." Even one of the Zcash guy, Eric Gabizon, was like, "Wow, this is an amazing system." I wish Zcash started with this type of system. So I think that's a huge testament to what we built. I mean, we haven't gotten that much publicity, but I'm really, really proud of what our team has built. Yeah.
Absolutely, especially for the size of your project right now, you're
Yeah,
you're making you're getting attention from those big names and actually positive attention. But I would
yeah,
also
that's
like
right.
to ask, this is not fail proof. Same with any kinds of systems, if there's someone smart enough. So, what do you think is the worst kind of failures that are most dangerous in general in a privacy protocol that should be avoided?
So, I mean, obviously, like we've been through some challenges where when we were trying to figure things out, you know, they were flaws in the cryptography, right? Like with the earlier protocols that we were using called zero coin, and took several years to find that vulnerability. Similarly, like Zcash also had vulnerabilities that could have allowed infinite minting. Monero also had a bug that could also have allowed infinite minting. These type of things can be quite tough to find, especially because everything is being hidden, and there can be very subtle failures in the math or the implementation of the code, which makes it like, well, that's why you have to be really good and really, you really have the better test, which is why actually there was a coder that was actually trying to claim a security bounty on Firo, and he was looking at it, and he was like, wow, this code base shows signs of trauma in a good way because we've been hacked
Stress
before.
test,
We
yeah.
understand. Yeah, but it's like, wow, there's like so many checks and balances every step of the way. Like this is like almost on a paranoid level, right? So that those are some of the failures that we have experienced firsthand. Many other privacy projects have experienced firsthand, and because of the private nature, it becomes very, let's say if there's an issue, containing the damage is really hard because you're like, well, what coins? What's the hack coins? Which is the real one? Which is the fake one? Right? So unlike like a compromised website where you can kind of change your password, a privacy failure on chain can't really be undone very easily. So that's why we prioritize, well-studied cryptographic primitives. The building blocks are very simple to understand, well understood, independent audits, formal analysis, and it's also why we're pretty cautious about rushing features because the cost of getting privacy wrong is much higher than the cost of taking more time to get it right. So, yeah, I mean, developing privacy is not for the faint of heart, and that's kind of why most other privacy projects they just use other people's protocol because like they just use the Zcash protocol, they use the Monero protocol, and use something else because it's just so hard to build this type of systems. And we have had first-hand experience, and I think we're probably one of the best in the game in building transactional privacy protocols. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've mentioned the cost of privacy, and I'm sure a lot of people, including me, are curious. What is the cost to have our hands in this technology that Firo has? So, what are the requirements? And I guess most of all, for me, how does the token of Firo plays in within your system?
Right. I mean, first of all, it's a coin, right? So it's like Monero, it's like Bitcoin. You can use it to pay. And by the way, like we have instant transactions, so you don't even have to wait for a confirmation. It gets finalized and locked within a couple of seconds, which is great for the end user, right? You don't have to wait a X number of minutes or X number of arbitrary confirmations. Blocks are also finite amount of time, but yeah, you don't really have to do a lot to get the private. You just use one of our wallets. You buy, send, and receive of it. But soon in the next, hopefully one month or so, we're gonna have something called Spark Assets, which allows people to create their own assets on Firo. And the best thing about it is that it shares in the same anonymity set as Firo. And what that means is that, let's say I make a Coinomi coin, right, on Firo's Spark assets. Whenever someone transacts with this particular Coinomi coin, it looks like any other transaction. That means when someone looks at it like, oh, did Firo transfer or did Coinomi coin transfer? Did a meme coin transfer or a stable coin transfer? So that means because like, let's say if you just make a single meme coin and maybe like, hardly anybody uses it, that user base of anonymity set is really, really small. But because of the way our new Spark assets are designed, every single transaction looks kind of identical to each other. Obviously, it's just a bunch of mathematically gobbledygook. And therefore, that even if your small privacy coin or your all small privacy token shares in the anonymity set of every other participant in the ecosystem. And obviously, Firo is going to be the use as the gas to power this system. And obviously, Spark Names has this. You also have to use Firo to do this. So it's kind of like, yes, we are a privacy coin. We are not giving up on the easy to use cases. And I think we're one of the best here. Like, who has instant private transactions? I think we're the only ones actually. Um, but at the same time, we are having, like, yeah, once you have the Spark assets launch, it not just becomes a privacy coin, it becomes the gas of a privacy ecosystem. So that's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the awesome things, and being partnered with you guys at Firo to be partnered with one of the best in the industry. And we've had Firo for the Coinomi app for quite a long time right now. So if you want to grab some Firos for yourself, you can use Coinomi in order to obtain some of the Firo coins that you wanted. If you excuse me, if you got convinced by this conversation. And you know what? I'm curious about your long term vision. Let's say best case scenario. What would real world success look like for Firo if privacy becomes the norm that we have here in the world?
I, I mean, really, I really just want to see people using Firo for everyday transactions without thinking about privacy. The kind of in the same way they don't think about using about Signal or WhatsApp about the encryption protecting it. It's just like it becomes a day-to-day tool, without treating it. Oh, there's something shady
Yeah,
that
can't say this.
you're
Someone is
doing.
listening. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Right. And we're kind of already starting to see this. I mean, despite the market cap being low and whatnot, in the places that really needs it, like for example in Syria, where the banks actually impose a 40 US dollar per week limit for withdrawing from banks, cryptocurrencies, especially like Firo, really makes sense. I mean, do you ask them why are they using privacy coins versus other coins? Because when I was speaking to people over there, they were saying, well, there were cases where the regime actually came and seized people cryptocurrencies holding. So they're like, they don't want to be revealing the fact that they're using cryptocurrencies, or that they are, how much someone holds, right? That makes them a big target. And hearing about this even like several years ago, when Venezuela was having issues, I mean, yeah, before the raid and all that, like many years ago, like you had this small group of people that were like having a small little rig mining Firo to support their family. I think that's like really powerful. And now we have an integration with Anon Bazaar done by the same peoples, by XMR Bazaar, which is the largest clear net marketplace using privacy coins. So yeah, you can buy all sorts of cool stuff online, and yeah, without any sort of like worries that, oh, some certain thing is going to get tied back to me, or I'm going to be victimized, or judged for what I do. And I think that's really powerful, especially having experience firsthand of being treated like a criminal, even though I wasn't, right? So I think
that feeling. Yeah,
I just want to see usage. Yeah.
you feel like
Yeah,
you're guilty. You didn't do anything bad. You're just somewhat tied to it, because of privacy and things like
that's
that.
right.
Unfortunately.
And the thing is that
Mhm.
governments, financial institutions, they're all conservative by nature. You do something that's a bit different and not necessarily illegal, it becomes like, oh, you're a red flag, right? And that, if you have this type of mindset, you're just going to crack down on any sort of innovation, right?
Yes.
And yeah,
It's too much. I mean, their intentions might be in the right place, but it's at the
that's right.
cost of inconveniencing a lot of people and sometimes affecting their lives. Like, imagine you're going to be locked out of your funds that you really need at a certain point in time, but you don't have a choice. It's part of the protocol of the government or the thing, and it really sucks to be that kind of person. And I've been there. And Ruben, you've mentioned you've also been there, and nobody deserves that, especially if we're playing it fair for everyone. And
Agree.
Ruben, you know what? As we come to the to the last part of the AMA, or the spaces that we have right now, I just wanted to tell everyone to please, if you're really interested and if you want to know more about Firo, feel free to follow their socials. And if any of your questions or doubts are still not answered here, you can directly ask them on their socials as well. And of course, you can please download Coinomi application if you wanted to get a piece of the pie of your token. And if you wanted to get more information in general, feel free to ask us and Firo as well. So, Ruben, if you do, you still have any other announcements, maybe some updates that people would be expecting in the Firo in the near future?
Oh yeah, I mean we have some pretty big announcements coming in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, stay tuned. I don't want to spoil the surprise, and yeah, just say that just follow us what we're doing. But yeah.
Okay, a lot of secrets that you don't want to be revealed. So be sure to follow Firo and their socials to be one of the first people to get all of their announcements. So once again, guys, this is Duane from Coinomi, and be sure to also get on Coinomi Rewards because it is live. You'll be able to earn free weekly crypto airdrops by checking in daily and completing various tasks. Who knows? Firo might be one of those airdrops. We'll be announcing if we have any of them. And you can expect a better experience in terms of using Coinomi Swap too. So, Ruben, thank you so much for joining us at Coinomi Connect. And do you have any final messages before we end the Coinomi Connect?
No, but thank you so much for having me, Duane, and hopefully we can get more of our privacy features within Coinomi soon.
Of course, we're free to have another Coinomi
Yeah.
Connect. It's going to be awesome to talk about the advancements and the developments that we've had. And hopefully, not more of our experiences getting locked out of our wallets when we needed it that most. But hopefully, Firo in the near future will be one of the biggest solution to the problems that we have in privacy and the cryptocurrency space that we all work in. So that is it for today's episode at Coinomi Connect, this time with Firo, and we'll hope to see you again on the next one. See you guys.
See you guys. Bye.